back. Scammers looking for new ways to steal your money every day, and they're getting smarter at it. Last year, consumers lost over $8 billion in scams, a more than 30% increase from 2021. Joining us right now is finance professor at the University of San Diego, Dan Riccato. Dan, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. So what are the most common scams?
Yeah. Hi, Maria. Thanks for having me. It really has run the gamut. We're seeing investment scams right now, everything from cryptocurrency on through to business scams like, fake franchises, for example. You can wake up this morning, Maria, you can start your own cryptocurrency and probably find someone to buy it from you. Fake charities, fake romance scams, all these things that you and I report on over the years, they really have become more of a plague for consumers as opposed to just a nuisance.
And the whole point is to try to get your money.
Try to break into that purse, Maria, and they've gotten incredibly sophisticated. You often wonder why, with the creativity and effort these scammers put into it, we could channel that in a more positive direction. We could probably have peace in the Ukraine, for crying out loud. They use social media as a highway to get into your personal 411. They target vulnerable consumers, especially the elderly, younger consumers who might not be as sophisticated. And they appear legitimate. They go to great lengths to appear legit. For example, you remember a few months ago, Maria, the scandal involving Zelle payments, where you would get a phone call that actually looked from, the caller ID was from your bank. So they go to great lengths to actually look legitimate.
Yeah. So what are some of the tips to avoid the scams? What can we do to protect ourselves?
Yeah, well, the obvious one is avoid social media offers of any kind. I know they look tempting, but try to avoid those. Use trusted shopping sites. You're not going to find a Kate Spade clutch for $10 legitimately, right? So use trusted sites that you can actually trust. Maria, here's one for you. Use your credit card, not your debit card. Here's why. Your credit card has much better protection in case something goes wrong than your debit card. If a crook gets your debit card, they can wipe out your whole bank account. It becomes a nightmare to unwind that one. So stick with your credit card if you're shopping online. That's probably the tip of the morning.
I mean, that's crazy. You would think that there's more protection on your debit card since it's attached to your checking account.
Well, you have similar protections, but here's the problem, Maria. They can wipe out your bank account and potentially get to other accounts because you and I have all of our things now hooked into our bank accounts, right? So to avoid that nightmare in its entirety, I always counsel folks, use your credit card, use a good credit card. If something goes wrong, give them a call. Credit card company will deal with it.
Brandon, jump in.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how many of these scams are originating on U.S. soil versus abroad? Because I know, obviously, if they're being launched in countries like India, which has a huge problem with this, it becomes a lot more difficult for our law enforcement to go in there and advocate and get these things fixed.
That's a great question. And I think you'll see a lot of these do come from abroad. North Korea has a cottage industry. Some of the former Soviet satellite states, the business is booming right now for scammers in some of those locations. And you mentioned India as well, Brandon. And that's part of the difficulty because law enforcement has really limited means to get into the roots of those things. Makes it even more difficult. Overall, by the way, Brandon, I'd give our regulators a C+ on this one. I think they can do more. They should do more. But you said it right. A lot of them come from our so-called frenemies abroad.
It's amazing, Dan. I mean, when you say all of these scams are taking place all the time, this has to be costing the banks huge money to actually put new plans in place to find these and stomp down on them.
Yeah, bingo. Because at the end of the day, who pays for it? You and I. Because we know, Maria, that banks build that into their cost structure. It's a cost of doing business. And guess what? That cost gets passed on to the consumer. So whether you've been directly impacted by a scam or not, you and I wind up paying for it.
Yeah, there you go. Dan, great to get your thoughts on all of this. We so appreciate it. Dan Riccato joining us. We'll see you soon, Dan. Quick break, and then one Ohio restaurant using brutally honest tactics to bring in new employees.